Before I start this, I should probably mention that I have a Twitter. Follow me, I guess. And this guy is the perfect apex, the perfect stereotype of all of the bad arguments into one, plus the pretentiousness. So I usually avoid going after people like this because I don't want my arguments to be the same thing over and over and over again, because theirs usually is. But this is perfect.
What beasts we become on the field of battle? How poorly we conduct ourselves in the fog of war.
Quick tip. If you want people to actually understand and relate to what you have to say, if you want people to actually adopt your position maybe, do not put on this pretentious, pseudo-poetic kind of act, because all you're saying to them is, I am better than you. You have to listen to me, and the fact that you're not is because you're stupid. That's the Anna Kasparian way of doing it. And that's not going to win you any favors. And don't get me wrong, I really love poetry. I love T.S. Eliot. He is my favorite poet. I have verses of his memorized because I love the shape of the words as you speak them. It's really beautiful. But if the only way that you're being poetic is if you're doing it out of spite, and you're doing it to gain something instead of actually letting it flow, that's not going to win you any favors. But I shouldn't do that. I should play more. We've only been through a sentence.
We can't even see ourselves. The parameters, the rules of engagement between social justice activists and the skeptic/alt-right coalition.
Hello, Dusty. Okay, most of these people who are in, I guess, the skeptic community, the alt-right doesn't appear to like them. They wouldn't like me.
Is skewed. The skeptics want you to believe they don't care about justice like we do.
Wait, what? Most fucking skeptic channels, they want you to think that they care about the actual issues instead of issues that SJWs think are issues but they're non-issues. If you look at most of these channels, they're not trying to say, fuck you, you're dumb. They're trying to say, these are the real issues, stop being such a retard, I guess. The only channels that I could kind of understand your argument from is those compilation channels. And it's not because they don't really care about the issues, it's just because there's no person in it besides the person behind the screen operating it. You don't see any rebuttals, you don't see anything else but the pure footage from Vine or Tumblr or any cancerous thing that uploads these I'm so oppressed, look at me kind of content. And that's just because people like watching it. I mean, I don't really like watching cringe compilations, but there's a market for it, I guess. It just doesn't make sense. I don't really see them trying to act like I'm too cool to care about your problems. It's more, you're not caring about the real problems.
And yet, when you criticize toxic masculinity, they scream misandry. When you call someone out as Uncle Tom, in a universal sense, not just anti-black people, even though I guess that applies, but trans people who engage in the vilification and marginalization of other trans people who don't pass muster.
So on Twitter, this guy called black people who are more conservative or just didn't support Black Lives Matter dogs and then coons. That just illustrates the contradiction of social justice. It's no longer more about the progressive stack. It's just, if you agree with me, then the progressive stack applies. And then it's fine. And you can use that to be as much of a victim and get as many free things as you want. But if you don't, then I'm going to treat you worse than the worst. And then the trans thing, I think, is a dig at Blair White. I don't think, out of all the stuff that I've seen of Blair White, I don't see her criticizing actual trans people just for being trans. I see trans trenders. I see her making rebuttals to them because they honestly do make LGBT sound like a fucking joke. They make everything worse for everyone else in that group, in those categories. They make it worse for trans people, just like otherkin. Otherkin are a fucking joke. And they make the actual struggles of real trans people look like a fucking joke as well. I would see why you would be angry at them. Especially how they don't actually try. They just kind of adopt the label. They don't try to transition. They don't try to make it look like anything else. And they're not actually trying to transition in the first place. They're just saying, I am a non-binary. That makes me trans. Or whatever. And again, I love how transgender people are supposed to be this minority that you have to protect at all costs, but one transgender person decides that they don't want your bullshit and they want to speak their own mind, you just act like all of that other stuff goes completely out the window and that you should just say whatever you want about them. That's very consistent.
Non-binary people, these political arguments make us all war criminals. These phrase, these little skirmishes on Twitter and YouTube, each side screaming for justice. All politics are about who you feel deserves justice. I feel like the fucking edgelords hold us to these fucking standards. They invite us into the arena and they throw down a sword with no edge and they say, don't say this, don't say that. In the morning, they'll make edgy jokes about Sean King being a white man in blackface. And in the evening, they'll cry out when you call a black conservative a fucking Oreo.
See, if we go along with the whole, your skin color means a whole lot, like your skin color is white, you're automatically racist. If we go with that and we go with Sean King, who I'm pretty sure is in with that social justice kind of lot, he is trying to be something that he is not. And he's using the ancestry thing. See, ancestry, we've all got different things. I'm not trying to pretend to be white just because there's some French in my family that's a tiny amount long way back. It's kind of the same thing that he's doing. So, he's doing it because of victimhood. If you know who Rachel Dolezal is, she was doing it because of victimhood. She faked her own hate crimes. And it's all because she wanted this victim cred. She wanted victim points because she knows she can get things out of them. She knows that she can absolutely do that. And it's the same for this guy. So, people are just making fun of it and pointing it out. Comedy is the best way to relate to people. Just pointing it out, because I don't know, I'm pretty sure he's aware of his own bullshit. He has to be. He looks like he is. But the difference is, when you call somebody an Oreo, when you call a black person an Oreo, the thing is, you're not doing it in kind of the same way. You are taking the race thing seriously, because you're saying, I am assigning each person of a particular race a particular ideology, and if they do not follow my perception of them and my perception that they like this ideology, then they are not actually of that race, that I'm revoking that from them. And I would feel the same way if you called a white person the same kind of stereotype. If you say this white person is supposed to be in this ideology that I think that all white people are in, and the fact that they're not means that I should call them this and I should revoke their whiteness or their white card or whatever fuck thing it is. And that's pretty racist. That just shows how racist you are. It's a completely different thing. Then again, this is kind of coming from the same people who think that all Muslim people are these brown people and therefore it's racist to criticize. That's kind of racist too.
If you care so much about free speech, if you're so angry about us getting offended, don't bitch to me when I'm not PC, when arguing against you. I confront people on their own terms. If you walk around flouting that words don't matter, words aren't a big deal, they're just words, words can't hurt, and then all your time on Twitter is spent bitching about how words have harmed you. They call me a racist, they call me a misogynist, a rape apologist, a xenophobe, an Islamophobe. I guess those words matter because they hurt you.
No, context matters, okay? It's not a black and white issue. I mean, I say that I'm for free speech, but that doesn't mean that I want to suddenly dismantle libel laws or slander, and I acknowledge that those are things. It would be pretty stupid if I just suddenly said that you should be allowed to say everything everywhere without getting judgment. I mean, if you release somebody's personal details by speaking, that's you speaking, sure, but it does have real life consequences. I acknowledge that that is a thing. When you call someone a name, that's not really a thing. It's just somebody saying something that you choose whether you're offended by or not. That is the difference between people using the free speech argument for people who call you a bitch, say, or some sort of racial slur, than from somebody who is actively trying to get information out against you and ruin your life with real life consequences. And anyway, people complain about these labels being put on them is because you can get people fired because they're Islamophobic or misogynistic or racist. Or there's a joke that offended me. Remember the dongle joke thing? Those people were fired because of that. People complain because this is the world that we live in. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with complaining. Absolutely nothing. But if you complain, expect people to have a response to you. As long as it's not silencing people, go ahead. Everybody complains. I've complained. You've complained. Everybody.
You want to step into the arena? Get ready to get your blood spilt. Pick up the sword. But remember that I'm going to pick up mine too, and it's going to get gritty. And nasty.
Who are you, Judge Dredd?
Because I'm not going to take it on my back. I don't care what you've heard about social justice warriors. I'm a goddamn social justice warlord. I have come to pillage and plunder and burn down your fucking Nazi towns and to bust open your skulls and eat the gray matter and drink the blood of my enemies from your skull. Because I want you to be afraid of me. You should be afraid of the fury of the dispossessed.
You look like one of the Garbage Pail Kids had a baby with hipster Sarah Silverman and it turned out to be a knockoff of Wheeler from Captain Planet. Intimidating.
You should be afraid of the fucking revolution. You who defend the status quo and call yourselves rebels. You garbage scum.
Okay, when I first started thinking about doing YouTube, one of the main things that I did to start recording talking points about what I wanted to address was that I had this book, and every single time I saw something from the news or from some other YouTube channel that was reporting on a problem to do with all of this stuff, especially if it was about men's domestic abuse being ignored and people just not caring, and then men committing suicide and not getting proper mental health shelters, all that, I would get really angry. I would get triggered, I guess. And I would get really upset. And I would write all of this stuff down just in rant format. I would just write it down and I would be really serious. I would just keep going. And then I was under the impression that this would be a video script that I would upload, that I would say, and it would be fine. And then I realized when I first actually started the channel that that was the wrong way of going about it. Because it was too serious. It was just way too over the top, way too complainy, way too moany. And one of the best things that you can do, as I said before, is to just relate to people. One of the best things that you can do is have a comedic side. Because where does comedy come from? Suffering. Every single person has suffered in some way, even if it doesn't relate to how somebody else has. Even if you're a really rich person that's born with a spoon in your mouth, at one point you've been through something, even if it pales in comparison to any other thing, you've been through something that resembles suffering. And that relates to people. And that is why I don't call people garbage scum unless it's in a joke. And that is also why I have this book full of video scripts that will never be made into videos, because they do not relate to people, to anyone, including me.
It's rebellious to punch down. You just keep in mind that it's much easier to punch up.
Isn't it the other way around? Isn't it rebellious to talk to power because you're talking up to a thing that could potentially destroy you or something? To defy power, isn't it easier to talk down to someone who has less than you?
And it may not be at the vanguard of the movement yet, but social justice warriors are slowly realizing that you can't wage a war with clean hands. Sometimes you're going to commit rhetorical crimes. You are going to fall beneath your ideals Because the edgelords and the shitlords only know how to fight in the muck.
Look, all that I have to say to you is this. The reason that I like Jeff Holiday, Vernaculus, Wizard of Cause, Bearing, Peach Bailey, all of those people, the Satirician, Charming Man, Drunken Peasants, Sargon, all of them that you consider hateful people, you know why I like them more? You know why I will always have respect for them more than I will for you, or anybody who drinks this bigoted, delusioned Kool-Aid? Is because they actually acknowledge that I am a human being that can take care of myself, and that if I fuck up, that is my responsibility. And I can make excuses. It probably wasn't all my fault, but they are still responsibility because I am just a human being. I am not a weak, feeble, weak-minded person just because of my skin color and my gender. And they also, as far as I've seen, don't treat me as someone who they can use as a victim to just further the narrative. There's actually a person with unique experiences. That is why I will always have respect for those type of people than I will ever have for people who swallow this social justice crap. And I hope I make myself very clear.
And maybe it's just me, because of where I come from, because of where I am. I know how to fight people in the muck. I know how to get down in the mud and blood and guts of violent language.
What war? Where's the war? Where's the fire? Is it on Twitter?
So don't come at me with this bullshit. Don't say Uncle Tom. Don't call Ann Coulter a cunt.
Say whatever you want, but expect people to come back with some sort of judgment or counter-opinion. That's just the way the human beings work. And the word cunt over here doesn't really mean the same as it means over there, probably. Cunt. I kind of use the word cunt as a term of endearment. But call who you want to call a cunt a cunt. That's just your opinion. You should be allowed to say it. If people get butthurt and try to silence you, that's their problem. That's really all people are doing. They're just saying, well, why are you calling this person that? That's kind of dumb. You should actually attack with arguments instead of trying to say that.
Don't come at me with that. Don't tell me to bring a stick to a motherfucking gunfight.
I don't have a gun either. Can I just bring some Quaaludes?
You want parlay, we can do parlay. You want politeness, I can do politeness. But don't you put shit in my mouth. Tell me to chew, swallow, and smile.
No. Tell that to the SJWs in some sort of academia places who are constantly shoving this progressive shit down the throats of students who don't know any better. Children, maybe. Safe schools, remember safe schools? Remember, tell white kids that they're responsible for being racist and that they hurt people just by existing. Tell that to the young little boys who's being told that the domestic abuse and everything is his responsibility, even though he's never done anything like that and he's like 8. Also tell that to the therapists who think that toxic masculinity is a thing, who will tell a man after he has been raped in prison that that is somehow misogyny or that is somehow due to toxic masculinity, and basically victim blame before half-heartedly trying to help him. Why don't you tell those people that before you come at me with that shit? So my intro, my Monkey Island intro, is on hold at the moment because I don't really want to use the kind of copyrighted stuff as my thing. I know that's kind of stupid of me, so I just didn't want to do it. And I'm too stupid to make my own intro because I don't really know what I would do or what I would put in. So we're going to be intro-less for now, unless I can sort something out, so I'm not sure.
My boy,